You're listening to The Whole Truth, a Resources Rising Stars podcast.
Hello and welcome back to The Whole Truth podcast. I'm Paul Armstrong. We often have stories on this podcast that offer investors leverage. That's one of the key benefits of this podcast, and that's what we aim to do for investors, to bring you opportunities. But I don't think we've ever had an episode here where we focus on a company with a market cap of just $4 million. I mean, there are shells on the ASX that have got a higher market cap. This company has got two projects, both in Australia, gold and antimony, two hot metals. George Ventouras is the executive chairman. He takes us through each project, why he likes it, what the upside is, and what they're going to do to unlock the value of these projects over the next few months. This is leverage exposure at its best. Have a listen to what George has got to say and see if you think this is a great opportunity. George, this must be one of the most leveraged plays on the ASX. A market capitalisation of $4 million. You've got a gold project, an antimony project, both in Australia. You must be looking at the market cap and thinking, could this get any cheaper?
Yeah, and that's exactly right, Paul. I mean, we see this as a huge opportunity for our investors and people who are looking at the stock on the sidelines perhaps and wanting to jump in. We've got some fantastic ground. We're in a great location, fantastic neighbours with some great discoveries. So it's ripe for the picking, really.
There is. So let's talk about what is ripe about it. It's probably the right way to look at this story. I mean, let's start with the gold project in New South Wales. Quite a mouthful, Brooker. I think it's the R at the end that proves to be the tongue twister. What is it about Brooker that you like?
Well, the Brooker project is really quite fascinating because it seems to be a couple of different styles of mineralisation across the same tenement. So there's potential for orogenic type systems, potential for intrusive related systems, and that's the one that we're really quite excited about. So what we've got is a tenement that's been a little bit explored. It was explored over 100 years ago. There was a modest production of just over 3,000 ounces around the Bear Hill prospect at an average of around 28 grams a tonne of gold. So there has been production, but it's in the 1890s. So a long time ago, a little bit of drilling, modern drilling to the west of the tenement at the Mannix and Mount Secret prospects. Very shallow. It was a small program. It was a private company that ran out of funds and didn't have the opportunity to delve a bit further into those prospects. Really, aside from that, this place has been left untouched for over 100 years. We've done a LiDAR survey which basically strips away the vegetation and gives us an opportunity to see the level of historical workings in this place. And we were astounded by what we were seeing. We're seeing adits over 25 and 30 metres long. We've got shafts, we've got trenches, pits, over 400 occurrences of historical workings through this tenement.
So obviously those workings wouldn't be there if there wasn't well-established mineralisation.
Well, and that's the thing. The old-timers really knew how to sniff this stuff out, and they were sniffing out high grade. So that we know that as we go to the east of the tenement, we're looking potentially at a high-grade system. So if we can tap into that, then we're certainly onto something. And the fact that there's been no modern exploration, no drilling, the terrain's not flat. It's a little bit tricky to get into. But therein lies the opportunity that we see, that it's been left untouched, it's been tricky to get into. Land access is always an issue in New South Wales. We've got land access, and so we're ready to go 100 miles an hour and really discover what the potential is.
Now, you've done some work of your own, though. You've taken some rock chips and some samples.
Yep.
That supports your view there's high-grade gold there?
Yeah, look, we've done some modest programs of rock chipping and some soils, and we're starting to see a bit of a pattern. So certainly on the east, we're getting some high-grade numbers. Recently, north of 12 and 5 grams per tonne at Bear Hill. Through the central prospect, we're getting 20 and 30 grams a tonne. And even still to the west, where there has been some drilling, we peaked at 150 grams, 153, I think, from memory, grams per tonne of gold. So we're seeing high spots of gold mineralisation.
Which is consistent with the fact the old-timers tried to pick the eyes out of it.
100%. Right. And when we see the spoils from some of these locations like Bear Hill, Butcher's Reef, they're quite substantial. So they did dig a lot of dirt to produce 3,000 ounces. It's about $10 million in today's language. It certainly took a bit of effort. And, as I say, they knew how to sniff it out. So with the tools that we have in our tool belt, we're ready to go that next step.
Does that support that shallow, high-grade mineralisation, George, does that support the theory there could be a much bigger intrusive related system below it? Is that how it goes?
We think so, yeah. I mean, historically, and in New South Wales, quite often the veins are quite narrow, but they are stacked and they can be quite deep. So there is the potential for some serious tonnage.
And, of course, for the reader's benefit, for those who aren't geology students, an intrusive related system is very attractive from an investment perspective because it's got the potential to be very large. I think, the 10 million ounce Hemi monster in Western Australia is an intrusive related system. It gives you an example of the size of the prize.
Yeah, definitely.
If that's what's lying underneath.
Definitely. And no one really understood the Hemi deposit. They just didn't think it could hold that many ounces. And there were multiples of people looking at that project and they just couldn't see the potential. But the fact that De Grey's come up with, what they came up with as far as the resource is concerned is a testament to their tenacity and consistency.
So what happens next here? You've got the assays from the samples. There's obviously smoke everywhere. Yep. What's the plan?
Yeah, that's right. So we do see a lot of smoke, and now it's about finding the fire. We've got the IP results coming through shortly. That should light up some targets, we believe, on the west, so towards Mannix and Mount Secret prospects. The program is to do soils and more rock chipping towards the central and eastern part of Kookabookra, so crossing the old production area of Bear Hill and Butcher's Reef, where we think there could be high grade. So if we can find a pattern of mineralisation through the soil results, then we'll also develop a drill program for that area as well. So chasing high grade, big systems.
And when's that going to get underway?
Well, we've got permits being put in shortly for Mannix and Mount Secret, because we think that holds some low-bearing fruit or low-hanging fruit for us. But we'll be quickly following that up with a Bear Hill program. Ideally, we'd like to be able to drill both in and around the same time in the same program within the next 2 or 3 months. But, permitting, getting access, it does take time. There's some dense bushland there, so clearances. So, time might be a little bit rubbery, but that sort of 3 to 4 months should be quite a considerable amount of work being done.
Now, while you prepare for that maiden drilling program, George, let's look to Rockfell here. We're changing here to Antimony. Some people like to pronounce this antimony. We'll go with antimony today. Antimony is obviously one of the hot critical metals. It's getting people pretty fired up. It's some of the stocks into this have had a big run. Now, the standout of the sector has been Lovato. Lovato is your neighbour at Rockfell.
Yeah, that's correct. And I think the antimony was the reason that the company picked up the project late last year. At that point, it was thought of as an antimony project with some gold. We see it paralleling now. So being a long strike, we believe, from Lovato with their resource, 90-odd thousand tonnes of antimony plus 1 million ounces of gold. We think the same fault system that's driving that mineralisation may well come onto our ground towards the Akel prospect. We're seeing some high numbers in rock chips, plus 4% antimony. There's gold.
Is that similar to what Lovato's getting?
They have got around that in the past. I mean, there's been spikes. It's an old historical production centre, so there's a lot of historical numbers. But again, at Rockfell, there's been very limited exploration, very limited modern exploration, and certainly again to the east, absolutely no drilling. So there is a huge amount of upside, huge amount of prospectivity.
I mean, the market appetite for the antimony is huge. Lovato just raised $55 million this week.
Yeah.
There's no shortage of investor demand for exposure to this.
No, exactly right. And look, anyone in that region, if there's a discovery and a resource is defined, with Lovato looking to get their plant operational for production in 26, there's pathways for ore. So it's a pretty neat, interesting spot to be.
I mean, there's no doubt that if you find it, the market's going to love it, and if you find it in a reasonable quantity, you either sell it to Lovato or Lovato takes you out or buys the asset. I mean, there's any number of outcomes there, isn't there?
Well, I don't want to speculate on that, but there's certainly pathways.
That's for an investor perspective. There's various exit points there if you have success with the drill rig.
Totally.
So what's the plan of attack?
So the plan of attack, I mean, as I said before, that getting access to some of the land areas can be tricky with the local landowners. We've got some momentum at Kookabookra, so that's where a lot of the groundwork's being done. But at the same time, we're not sleeping on Rockvale. In the background, the wheels are turning. We're doing work on getting access. We're signing up landowners to be able to get on ground and do soil programs, rock chipping, again, to work out and to divine some drill targets that we can drill.
How close to your boundary has Lovato intersected this mineralisation?
We're about 1.5 Ks in some spots. But the major faults that drive it go onto our property, but it's the cross-cutting faults which tend to drive the mineralised fluids. And we're seeing a lot of those cross-cutting faults through the southeast of our property, and that's a priority for us right now. But yeah, as you say, look, antimony, we've got a smattering of silver, all hot commodities we're exploring for in a pretty neat jurisdiction.
Right. So really this is a case of, in both projects, the common theme here is getting in onto the ground and getting the rig in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not a one-trick pony. We're trying to do multiple programs at the same time, but doing methodical work. I mean, you can go and put field teams all over the place, but we don't want to waste resources. We want to really hone in on the areas that we know have potential and explore those methodically, bring the results to market, drill the really hot-looking targets, and the rest will take care of themselves.
I mean, there's any number of exploration companies out there with next to nothing that are capped at $15, $20 million. You'd think you only need a sniff here, and from a shareholder's perspective, you get a handsome return.
Yeah, look, we're continually surprised by our market cap, given our asset base and the prospectivity we have. So we think that if we get, a couple of nice holes and get some good intersections, we'll be off to the races.
Yeah, the opportunity is there. Certainly the low-hanging fruit is there. One good sniff and it's a game changer.
100%.
All right. Well, it sounds like you're going to be busy working with that permitting and getting that drill rig in there, and between now and Christmas, you could have a game changer on your hands. Yeah,
look, there'll be a lot of news flow, as I say, a lot of ground programs, permits being put in, IP results coming out, other initiatives or geophysics that the technical team might decide to initiate. But yeah, look, if we keep seeing what we've seen so far, it's nothing but upside.
You've got a couple of big shareholders in the register who obviously share the faith.
Yeah, look, I think they're supportive of the pathway. We just need to deliver on what the potential is, and everyone will be happy.
But they're there because they can see the leverage.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, great. Well, George, thank you very much for your time today. That's obviously, we have a lot of stories on the Whole Truth podcast that offer investors leverage. That's one of the key benefits of the podcast, to take our listeners through opportunities. But I don't think I can recall one quite at $4 million. It's got two projects, both in Australia, in two hot metals in gold and antimony that are coming up for drilling programs. You tick a lot of boxes there from an investor's perspective. Yeah,
look, we think so as well. And I think that shareholders should certainly put Thunderbird on the radar. As I said, a lot of news flow and potentially a lot of good work coming up.
Oh, well, good luck. Let's hope the rig gives flight to Thunderbird. All the best.
Thank you.
You've been listening to The Whole Truth, a Resources Rising Stars podcast, produced by Resource Media, hosted by Paul Armstrong for Reed Corporate. Please note that Reed Corporate does not provide investment advice, and investors should seek personalised advice before making any investment decisions.